two insiders, Mike Florio and Jerry Dulac, dropped a couple of names that could also be on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll start with Mike Florio's because it's wild. I mean, does it surprise you? But it's wild. And all respect to Mike Florio, but he said pretty certainly, to be honest, that if Aaron Rodgers is not coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you want to know who is? Jameis Winston. Because he could sling the rock to both George Pickens and DK Metcalf. He's exactly what you need for those guys. That's what he said. And he, again, said it with such certainty that that is the move after Aaron Rodgers. Meanwhile, Jerry Dulac named two rookie quarterbacks who could be on the horizon here, Jackson Dart and Will Howard. We'll toss two more in there, Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe, because we know the Steelers have interest to those as well. We'll start with Jameis Winston. What? That's my biggest response. How did we get here? Jameis Winston would be cool. He'd be fun. We've joked about him in the past. I love Jameis. I think he's hilarious. I don't think he's the worst quarterback in the world. I definitely don't. But if we're going to be very honest, Mason Rudolph probably wins you a Super Bowl before Jameis Winston does. If you gave it 100 tries, I would imagine that even in the grand, somehow it doesn't come down to Mason winning the Super Bowl. It comes down to you could already visualize Jameis throwing the interception in the Super Bowl that costs you the Super Bowl. Yeah. Mason at least isn't going to do that. Mason will bare minimum you as far as you could possibly carry him. Jameis is going to carry you as far as Jameis can carry you. The Steelers are aware of this. They're not. Mike Tomlin did not allow Russell Wilson to call plays at the line of scrimmage, did not tell Justin Fields to do literally nothing but throw it to George Pickens or run the football conservatively, and controlled every aspect of Kenny Pickett for 2 years just to say Jameis is the guy. That's the one we're going to let loose. That's the guy that we're making the change here. It doesn't follow the philosophy at all of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mason Rudolph does a little bit, but Jameis does not. But at the same time, in Florio's defense here, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not a Steelers quarterback at all. A Steelers quarterback. And Mike Tomlin has said, screw it. We just got to try and figure this thing out. Maybe Jameis is a name that's bigger than Mason Rudolph's and maybe comes in here as a plan B. Do you see it at all? We've talked about Jameis before, but I'm telling you, with such certainty, Mike Florio said Jameis Winston's name. And you got to ask, do you think there's some truth to that?
I mean, that is an example of say anything with enough confidence and some people will believe it. No,
100%.
I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers would look into Jameis Winston. And you said, maybe they're opening up. Maybe Mike Tomlin is saying we have to kind of change things up because he's going after Aaron Rodgers. It is mighty different going after a guy who is a 4-time MVP. And one of those times was as frequently as 3 years ago. And saying maybe he has one last year, one last ride left in the tank, and going with a guy who averages the same amount of interceptions that he has touchdowns. Now, in that record, he also does throw a lot of touchdowns. He does throw for a lot of yards. Let's not forget that he put Jerry Jeudy on the map as one of the top 5 wide receivers in the game for several weeks throughout last season. That's who Jameis Winston can be at his best. At his worst, your defense is going to look over to the other side of the ball and say, I don't think we even want to play. Can we just put up the 7 for the other team? Because we're out there the entire 60-minute game. So I don't think the Steelers would go for Jameis Winston. It just doesn't fit with what they have done to this point in the offseason. That feels like a move that you make when you're saying, hey, we just need guys to fill out the quarterback room. The Steelers are trying to find an answer. And the fact that they already brought in Skylar Thompson on the first day of the entire offseason, they already brought in Mason Rudolph, and they've shown so much interest in this rookie quarterback class. Whether you like it or not, they've shown the interest. It feels to me that going after Jameis just doesn't quite fit everything that we've seen from them throughout this offseason so far.
I agree. And to be honest with you, I agree, but I also disagree because everything they've done this offseason is so anti what the Steelers do that it just doesn't make any sense. But I agree with you that it's not a move that the Steelers do. Like, that's not, it doesn't tie into anything that the Steelers' philosophy says it would, or that Mike Tomlin's go-to says that it would. Like, this is not, that's not a Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers, Art Rooney, Omar Khan move. Like, there's nobody out there in the Pittsburgh Steelers organization that you say, oh, that he would do that. Because you could look at all the rest of them and it makes sense. You know, Aaron Rodgers, that's a Mike Tomlin move. All day, that's a Mike Tomlin move. You know that he probably sent him the gif of him and Rodgers just smiling at each other, saying, come on, buddy. You know you want to come to Pittsburgh. You know you want to come to Pittsburgh. DK Metcalf. That's Omar Khan ready to make a splash, but also Mike Tomlin drooling at the idea of DK Metcalf. Mm-hmm. That's a move, you know? Keeping Arthur Smith, drafting Kenny Pickett, hiring Matt Canada, Art Rooney moves. Spot, like, you know what I mean? That's Pittsburgh blood right there. That's how we do these things. Keeping Najee Harris, the starter all season long. Art Rooney / Mike Tomlin move. Jameis Winston fits none of these. Like, not a single one. Mason Rudolph fits the Art Rooney, Omar Khan side of things. I think maybe Mike Tomlin, but like, you got to think maybe they hate each other. I have no idea.
Come on now. I mean, Mike Tomlin turned to him at the end of 2023 and gave him a playoff game. Like, he went with him over a healthy Kenny Pickett.
I agree. That has to earn
some brownie points in Mason's eyes, and he came back. So you can't hate the head coach if you're coming back for a third time.
I agree. And I love Mason. I think Mason's a great dude, but I mean, like, was that a big enough bone to say you've disrespected me so many times in the last 3 years that, you know, I don't know. Maybe you might be right. You're not going to re-sign with the team for 2 years saying, I hate this place. You know, there's got to be something there. And maybe Mason's turn of the tide is as strong as the fan base's turn of the tide towards him, because, you know, he is a local hero in the city of Pittsburgh right now. That is what he currently is, possibly saving their quarterback position. But again, Winston doesn't fit a single one of those moves. Like, he doesn't. There's just nobody that makes sense to pound the table for a Jameis Winston.